Welcome to the CEO Launch Podcast.
We are a dynamic mother-daughter duo bringing you personality, insights, and practical advice from two different generations of entrepreneurship.
We aren't just mother and daughter. We are also best friends and business partners.
I've watched my mom help thousands of entrepreneurs start the businesses of their dreams, including me. And now it's your turn.
Hello, CEO Launch family. Welcome back to this week's episode. We are on episode 12. This is 3 months.
Consecutively.
3 consecutive months of bringing you all just episodes and conversations about entrepreneurship. Last week, we talked about self-doubt. And as an entrepreneur, I know so many of us experience self-doubt. So if you haven't listened to that episode, please go back and listen.
Yeah, so pause this one and go back and listen to it.
It's a great conversation. I think we had some awesome takeaways with that one. This week, though, we're going to be talking about how small changes can make a big impact on your business. And I wanted to pass the ball to my favorite basketball player over here. I think you might have a story for us.
I do have a basketball story, and I don't know, those of you who know me or you don't know me, I started playing basketball when I was in the 8th grade. And the only reason that I started playing basketball is someone told me, "You're tall, you should play basketball." And
how tall were you?
Yes, I'm the same height. I've been the same height since 6th grade. So.
Okay, but how tall are you?
Yeah, 5'10". I'm 5'10". So
right.
Same height since 6th grade. That's probably another episode. But anyway, so I started playing basketball in the 8th grade. I need to put a side note that I tried out for the cheerleading team in the 7th grade and I didn't make it. So I wanted to do something. So I started playing basketball, and guess what? I liked it, right? I was good at it. I was a natural. And I played basketball all through high school. And I, in fact, went to Cheney University to play on the women's basketball team at Cheney. My senior year in high school was my absolute best year ever. I was the highest scoring player on the team. I was ranked, I believe, number 17 in the county for scoring. It was it was a really good year for me, right? Mm-hmm. So when I get to Cheney, and I think, I'm going to be, I'm getting ready to play collegiate basketball. And let me tell you, playing basketball on the collegiate level is totally different.
I bet.
Yeah, it's totally different. Even the workouts were different. I can remember the first day it's called conditioning. So you can't go in the gym right away. So you're working on getting your endurance together. And my first day of conditioning at Cheney, I thought I was going to die. I really did. I thought I would die. After conditioning, I went to the caf to get dinner, and I was so tired I couldn't eat. I just told my friends, okay, I'll see you guys later. I went and took a shower and went to bed. But nevertheless, one of the things that collegiate basketball taught me so much. I was a high scorer in my senior year, and my freshman year at college, I rode the bench.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was good. I needed to ride the bench because, one, I was not as good as I thought I was. I wasn't definitely not as good as the players that were on my team, but I didn't realize that I had been playing basketball since the 8th grade, and I never really learned the fundamentals of basketball. I was just naturally gifted and, being able to do that. And when I say fundamentals, there's a certain way that you should shoot a basketball. So if anybody is a basketball fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not a basketball fan, and maybe you saw Love and Basketball when Sanaya Lathan shot the ball and she just stood there with her arm up in the air, and her coach got on her case, that's the way your arm is supposed to look when you shoot the basketball correctly. Well, I didn't have that form. I was shooting with 2 hands. And my coach in college pulled me to the side, and I had practices before practice and practice after practice to work on my shot. And he said to me, you have an advantage because you're left-handed. And most people don't know how to guard a lefty. And so when you have a left-handed basketball player, a lot of times you can get around your defender or you can shoot over your defender because most people learn how to defend right-handed players.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I never knew that. Nobody's ever taught me this. And so we worked on my shot. by my sophomore year, not only was I off the bench, I was the team captain. That's the small thing. We changed this small thing in the way that I shot the ball, and it took me from being one, riding the bench to playing, but it also increased my shooting percentages. So I was making more shots by just making that one small change. And so I shared that story because I feel like sometimes in our businesses, we probably just need to make one small change. And that one small change could be the difference between staying in business or going to get another job. What do you think?
I think hearing your story, I definitely heard that lesson. And I also heard that you put in the work to make sure that you fine-tune that small change. It seems, something as small as making sure that you as a lefty had that advantage, but you were practicing. You had extra practice before and after, and you were working with a coach to get ready for it and tweaking that and turning that thing that, I'm sure, or I know because I've lived with you, that there are a lot of things that you left-handed people experience differently than us right-handed people. And so for a long time, that was something that may have been a disadvantage when you were writing or using scissors or sitting at desk, you know, those types of things. But you now in business was able to turn that into a superpower of sense because people aren't used to having left-handed, what did you say, shooters?
Yeah.
I'm not a basketball person.
Yeah, I know you're not. Yeah. We tried that.
That's another story.
Yeah.
That ain't even an episode. That's just a story.
That's the story, yeah.
But
that's the story that you, post-COVID, if you take us out, we might tell it.
Yeah.
But no, so by being a left-handed shooter, the defenders a lot of times don't know how to, because most people, and again, I'm going to break this down for the non-basketball players and those who are basketball players, you know what I mean? So most people will fake left and go right or, something like that, or they drive to the basket and they use their right hand. And as a lefty, I was able to go and do it from the left side, and most people aren't doing that. And so defenders aren't usually ready for that. And as a left-hander, you're shooting with a different hand. And so if they don't know which hand you're shooting with, when you get the ball, they may try to block the right hand when you're in fact going to end up shooting it with your left. So taking that little small thing, it may even be a small thing about you. So for me, that's the small thing about myself is I'm a lefty. And so taking that small thing about myself and using it as an advantage.
Right. And I think when you think about businesses, right, like I think about an Uber, it's a very small, distinct difference between what Uber can give you and what a taxi can give you. Because essentially, a taxi and Uber can get you to and fro. And a lot of times, taxis are available at most places that people wanted to...
Or need transportation.
Need transportation. But the small thing that Uber changed was that you can have it on demand. Making that small shift made a huge impact, not just in their business, but the transportation industry overall.
Yeah, it crushed the taxi business.
Yeah, because it's like now I have that convenience. I have that, technological advances in it. Of course, they've done a lot of other things to kind of separate themselves from the taxi business and other car share services, but that small thing set them aside. And so that's definitely something that as business owners, you have to think about, that small change that really can give you that competitive edge and give you that impact in your business.
Yeah, and I also think about that story. Being in basketball also taught me to go into situations with an open mind. And so I speak at a lot of conferences for startups, and even while I'm at those conferences, being 20 years into the game, I still sit in on the other sessions and listen to the other sessions because I feel like I'll never know everything.
Right. And
I can always learn from a situation. I'll sit and listen to another accountant, listen to somebody that's talking about starting your business, because you always go into situations thinking that if I just learned one thing, it was a success.
Right.
And so I think that's another thing that college experience taught me is, as good as I was 17th in the county, I was still not shooting the ball right. But I was 17th. I was the top scorer for my school and 17th in the county. So there's always room to learn something,
I definitely agree. When you mentioned like going to like different conferences to pick up on little things, I used to do that when I was preparing for my Sweet 16. I wanted to go to everybody's Sweet 16. And not because, I was just like super popular and wanted to be in the mix and things like that, but I wanted to see what everybody was doing for their Sweet 16 so that I could have an understanding of like what I actually enjoyed at Sweet 16s and what was the thing that I wanted to tweak so that when I had my Sweet 16, it may not have been perfect, but it was definitely going to be an improvement on the ones that I experienced. And also, sorry to anybody's Sweet 16 that I went to and you may be feeling away. I had so much fun at your parties, I promise.
And you know what? When you mentioned that also made me think about when you actually graduated from high school and you said you didn't want to have a graduation party. You wanted to have a going away party. Mm-hmm. And that was awesome because the fact that you didn't have a graduation party when everybody else was having their graduation party, you got the party hop. You actually were able to go to like 5 or 6 different graduation parties and not worry about the conflict of people being able to come to yours. And when you had your going away party, nobody else was having a party at that time.
Right. And so everybody was able to make it. And so again, it's about that strategy, like having that one small tweak because, the objective of the party was the same. I graduated. I was going to do something else in life. But, I made that shift from something as little as I graduated today versus I'm going away to college today, and which also got me a lot more gifts and money, if we can be honest right there.
Yep. And like you said, everybody was able to go to your party because they all had their parties on the same day or the same weekend. They weren't able to go to their friends' parties.
It was only your family, and family is fun, but it's nice to celebrate with your friends.
Right. And we didn't have a lot of family here anyway, so it was more about you celebrating with your friends anyway. So let's talk about the takeaways for this episode. I think that the one thing that I want to share as a takeaway is that one small new thing that you do in your business can change significantly the things that you do in your business. Changing one thing in your business. I know I've experienced this a multitude of times. Just changing one thing. I've had situations where I changed one thing and it decreased my expenses. And so maybe I didn't bring in more clients, but I spent less money, which meant essentially I took home more money.
Right.
So what do you have?
I think that's an important point. I think something that I got from your story was that there's no such thing as a saturated market when we're thinking about business, because nobody does business the way that you do business. Right. And so there were a lot of shooters in the country, probably at Cheney, there were a lot of shooters, but because you were left-handed, you had a completely different advantage and a completely different approach to shooting. It didn't necessarily make you better or worse or what have you. It improved your performance.
Just made it different.
Yeah, it made it different. And I think about that in my business. I always try to be personable and bring a human experience to the career services, so I don't have to offer generic advice and be boring and all of those things that people think about with HR. People hate HR. It's HR isn't your friend. That's the first thing I heard when I started at
that's when
company.
You go to get fired.
It's they're not your friend, but kind of changing that narrative. And for me, it's being informative, adding an educational component. And I get a lot of feedback from my clients that they gain clarity and confidence from having these conversations with me. And that's the difference. Yeah. That's the small difference, where it may be a lot of people that write resumes, but they're not having consultations with you. They're just kind of looking at your resume and figuring out, okay, these are the 2 things that I think would spice it up for you, and I'm going to do those 2 things. Or if you're in career coaching, they're kind of guiding you to what career coaching they want you to do versus things that's actually going to fulfill you and make you happy in your life. And so when you think about those things, you're not in competition with other people. I don't even fully like competitive analysis, because it's I'm not in competition with anybody else. The market exists, but it's not a saturated market because it's enough business for all of us.
Yeah, I believe that. And I say that I have so many friends that are in the same industry as me, and I just want us all to win.
Right.
And we is. And so that's my last point. You got to always be willing to learn. And so Don't think that conference is beneath you. Don't think a class is beneath you or a topic or a subject. You think you already know that. You have to be willing to learn. I'm 20 years in the game and I'm still reading books. I'm going to be reading books until I die, listening to podcasts, going to conferences, and taking in as much knowledge as I can because I want to always be improving and always be a better version of me.
Yeah, and I think that's so important for business owners to add a component of professional development for themselves, just because...
Even if your job isn't paying for it, invest in
you in your learning because the world changes so much. We live in this information age and, everything that we know today is going to be completely different tomorrow.
Yeah.
To stay on your toes, to stay in the top of your market, to be whatever qualifier you want, whether you want to be the best, whether you want to be the happiest, you want to be the whatever. In your business, you have to be educated about that and be open to, you don't know everything. And that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. You don't got to know everything.
You don't have to know anything. So you know what we always say as we close out? We hope you had fun, because we did.
We did.
Yes, we did. So thank you guys for being here. We really, really appreciate you. You have no idea how much we appreciate you. So meet us here next week. We're going to talk about handling
rejection.
Yeah. Woo. Yes. So yes, I got another vulnerable story for you. So make sure you're here. And if you haven't already joined our online community, the Efficient CEO Movement on Facebook, this is where we will continue the conversation and provide you with tips, advice, and encouragement.
And follow us on social media at the CEO Launch.
See you next week.
And don't forget to take off.
This is a Clairwood production.